So that brings us to insulin resistance. Now, insulin resistance is a term that we're becoming becoming more of a common term. Does anybody in the crowd know anybody that is insulin resistant or is insulin resistant themselves? Just raise your hands. No? No one knows anyone that's insulin resistant? You might go and get a glucose test. So you go to your doctor and you get a glucose test and it tells you whether you're insulin resistant or not. So this bringing us to diabetes, and we're going to have a look at how insulin resistance goes together with diabetes. So we have insulin and glucose in the bloodstream, all right? So we've got some sugar in there, and we have an insulin response. Now, I didn't show you this to you before either. Now, every muscle cell has insulin receptors in them, all right? So just say I'm a muscle cell and I've got insulin receptors in me. Now, I'm going to receive that insulin, all right? So I'm up like this and going along the bloodstream, and I'm an insulin receptor, and I'm going to pull in that insulin into the cell. I'm going to see the insulin and the insulin receptor is going to respond to it, and it's going to pull, and that's exactly how glucose gets into the cell. So insulin, to answer your question what insulin is a storage hormone. It's a hormone, and it wants to store whatever it's bound to in the bloodstream. Now, all your cells in your body have insulin, but namely your muscles have insulin receptors, and it's going to receive that insulin, all right? And whatever it's bound to, and it has a response to carbohydrate, it's bound, it's going to drag that carbohydrate into the muscle cell. Now this poor guy again, all right, so he's full, always full. Now, the majority of society is going to be at least 95% full at any time. All right, so he's full and he's not using any of the energy that he's got. All right, now his insulin receptors are shut. He doesn't need any more glucose. Thank you very much. So there's glucose and insulin going along in the bloodstream, and that muscle cell doesn't need any more, so it's not receiving it. All right, this is known as insulin resistance. All right, so your insulin receptors are like a flower. They're open and shut, and if you're full, they're shut. All right, and that's what insulin resistance is. So if he's not receiving any insulin, you end up with a bloodstream full of insulin and glucose. So this is when your bloodstream becomes high in sugar and you get a high blood sugar. Now, the problem is not that you're just getting spillover and you're getting fatter, but at any certain time, if you've mismatched and you're supply and your demand mismatched, and you've got so much sugar in your bloodstream, that's going to send a message back to your pancreas saying, look, we've got a lot of sugar here and it's just not storing. So in that case, your pancreas becomes overworked, so it tries to release even more insulin because it's saying, okay, well, we're not storing it. So it's going to keep on supplying more and more and more. And so with this bloodstream now that is filled with insulin, you've got this bloodstream which is flooded, yeah, it's saturated. And so that insulin, it's going to bind not just to the carbohydrates, but it's going to bind to your amino acids, it's going to bind to all your vitamins and your minerals as well. And it's going to try and store it. You've got this desperate storage now. You've got a lot of insulin, you've got desperate storage, and it has to store somewhere. So you're getting even fatter again. Now there's another problem that's proposed as well. So just say that that pancreas is working harder, and you do this day in, day out. You put in high carbohydrate when you don't need it. You put in high GI carbohydrate when you don't need it. Every day after day after day, your pancreas has only got so much life in it, all right? And over time, after around 30 years of doing this, up and down, Pepsi, Pepsi, Pepsi every day, it's going to tire out. And this is exactly what type 2 diabetes is. This is a time where you need to get your pen and you jab that insulin in there because your pancreas isn't working anymore. It's done it. So it's like, sorry boys, I'm done. I've had a good time, and it's over to you now. You got to do it yourself. And that's what this epidemic as type 2 diabetes is. So once again, there is a saviour, and that saviour is exercise. Okay, you can't get rid of it, you've got to do your exercise. So just say when you're exercising, you're going to start to run out of glucose, right? Now, when you start to exercise, and that's a lot of demand for glucose, and so your insulin receptors, they open right up. They don't just open up a bit, but they open up 6 times more than what they normally would. All right, that's 600%. So they're right open. So they're ready to receive. All right, so that insulin is going to the insulin receptor, and it's dragging all the insulin around. That insulin is now your friend. All right, and most of it's just going to go straight out to your exercise. You're just going to use it. All right, so you've probably still got that glycogen gap. So it's becoming evident that you need to put carbohydrates before and after your exercise to make the best use and the best use of that opportunity of having your open insulin receptors 6 times more than normal. Now, another threat, another problem is that you finish your exercise at the gym, you pack up your bag, whatever, you go back to your office, you take your time, you haven't eaten anything yet, and you get back to your office and you said, oh, well, I'll just eat now then. Now that's the problem, all right? Because when you stop exercising, your insulin receptors start to shut up again and start to close up like a flower, all right? So just say you get back to your desk, your insulin receptors are shut, and you're back to that insulin resistance again, all right? So if you get that back there and you say, all right, well, now I'm going to flood my body with a lot of carbohydrate, it might not all go in, all right? And so there's that missed opportunity there, yeah? You missed the boat. And you get that fat storage again. So carbohydrate is used for fuel. If you're going to put some high GI in there, make sure it's very close to your exercise, yeah? Either before or after. And that's pretty much the only place to have it. So match your food to your activity. If you're having high GI, you're going to flood the bloodstream, and you can use it. All right, if you're going to do some heavy exercise, that's when it can be useful for you. You probably get a good performance out of it. Now, your medium GI carbohydrate, now that's the one that we get a lot of problem with because we don't really need that medium GI that much, okay? Now, the only time that, most of us as workers, now if we're working as like a builder or a labourer, or you're a storeman, or you're a removalist, you're always on your feet, you're always picking things up and putting them down, and that's when a medium GI of something like 55 and above might work for you, okay? But for us, for the rest of us desk sitters, which spend most of our time at the computer, that's where it gets mismanaged, yeah? And it comes in at a different rate than it's going out. So oats, sweet potato, barley, anything under 55 on the GI scale is what you want to use, or your fibre or your vegetables. Now, very hard to get fat on these carbohydrates, all right? Who's ever heard of anyone that's got fat on vegetables? Nobody. Now, that's going to flood your bloodstream at a very slow rate, all right? And this is what you can have at any other time. You can have your low GI foods, you can have them at 8 o'clock at night if you want. It's just going to steadily release into your bloodstream, especially if you've got fibre there. All right, it's just not going to be too much for your insulin receptors to drag in. Now, there's a statement there, and this is a statement that I've based a lot of my professional life on, is why would I give my body something that it does not need right now? Now, it's a quote that's come from Arnold Schwarzenegger, who I love, and from his movie Stay Hungry. And it just makes so much sense to me. And as soon as I heard it, I based everything upon it. Why would I give my body something that it does not need right now? So I believe in timing, okay? And the flip side is also true. Give your body what it needs for the time that it needs it. Now, you've got a fad now. Your fad now, I think, is like, you're fasting and whatnot. These fads in dieting come and go. But that balanced diet is always still the best way to go, all right? And give your body what it needs at the time it needs it. So high GI before intense exercise, medium GI before sustained exercise, and low GI foods at any time that you really want. Wake up in the morning, wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning if you want and have a bowl of oats. You won't get fat, all right?